Welcome to Sovereign Submission. Today, I want to talk about a really important topic for submissive men. And really, it's a topic that's important for men in general. But for submissive men, this is particularly important. And it's this. You cannot go through life and truly be sovereign as long as you are saying yes to everyone else around you. The title of this particular episode is, in order to be submissive, you first have to be sovereign. And what does that really mean? What does that really mean? Here's what I think it means, and it's the way that I conduct my life. I used to be a codependent nice guy. I would say yes to everyone around me in order to please them, and I resented them for it a lot of the time most of the time, because I didn't really want to say yes. I would say yes to my ex-wife on things that I didn't agree with her about. Like the stepkids, I would say yes to the stepkids. I would say yes to my bosses at work. I would say yes to other things. And a lot of times I did it from a sense of feeling helpless. Like if I didn't say yes, I could get fired. Other things could happen. My life would be more difficult. And what I did is I aimed toward trying to be comfortable as I possibly could be, even if I wasn't happy. Didn't work out really well. And it taught me a really valuable lesson when everything came apart. I didn't even learn that lesson right away, but I started to learn it when I realized, okay, I've said yes to everyone else, but the one person I haven't said yes to is myself. Here's the irony about submission. When people look at submission from the outside in, they think, oh, this person is saying yes to whoever it is they're submitting to, whoever their dominant is. But the reality is that the submissive is actually saying yes to themselves and choosing themselves. I know it's an irony because from the surface it looks one way, but from the reality it's something else altogether. To be a truly sovereign, submissive man requires that you first learn how to say yes to yourself, that you choose yourself. And to acknowledge that part of what you're choosing is you are choosing a desire to be submissive to a particular person. Here's the other thing. Being a submissive person, a submissive man in this particular case, also requires that you say no to everyone else around you. Because here's the reality. If I'm going to submit to a woman and accept her leadership in my life, I can't be saying yes to everyone else around me. If I'm saying yes to everyone else around me, that diminishes my submission to her, and it honestly diminishes her trust in the dynamic. Oh, he's gonna say yes to everyone else? Well, then is he truly submitting to me? Is he truly giving himself to me and devoting himself to me? Now, here's the other funny thing. The other day, these videos get moved over to YouTube. And the other day, I there were a couple shorts that were generated. And the other day, I saw a couple comments. One was, don't teach men to simp. And the other one was, you're not doing men a favor by teaching them this lifestyle. This is, whatever. And it actually kind of reinforces my point. Most people will think of submission from the outside. They'll think, oh, that person's simping. That's not what simping is. Simping is nice guy codependency. That's saying yes to everyone around you. That's saying to everyone around you, yeah, go ahead and walk all over me. And a lot of men who think that they're not simping are actually simping. They're going through life saying yes to everyone else around them because that's what they've learned how to do to get by. That's not what I teach men to do. And here's the truth. There are a lot of men out there who desire submission, but feel shame about it. And the reason why they feel shame isn't because they're worried about what the woman will say. It's because they're worried about what other men will say. They're worried about men policing them, just kind of like what we saw there on my YouTube shorts, where I had two different men try to police me on what I'm trying to do, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Because the reality is, if I give what they say credence, I'm simping to them at that point. I'm not submitting, I'm simping. I'm being a nice guy because I'm caring about their good opinion. A submissive man who's in his power and his sovereignty doesn't care about the good opinion of other people. There is only one person, aside from himself, whose opinion will truly matter. And even in that context, I trust the submissive man will have a backbone and know how to stand up for himself when he needs to. Submission doesn't automatically mean compliance. It doesn't automatically mean that I say yes to everything. Now, there may be an exploration around, like, well, why aren't you saying yes to me? Like, if I'm in a, and I am in a dynamic, there have been occasions where I've been resistant to something. And so what has my beloved mistress done? She's gotten curious. She's asked, instead of being like, okay, I'm going to grind him down, she's gotten curious about me. And she's seen it as an opportunity to explore, well, what's the resistance here? And it's not necessarily about punishment. Now, it might be if I was like being bratty or whatever, but you get the context here. Being a sovereign man requires a level of awareness and presence in your life where you are able to walk through life as a king because you know yourself and you know what you want and you go for it. And if you're a submissive man, it also requires that you know how to accept her leadership and guidance. And let me be clear here, the irony of all this is that, like, as a sovereign submissive man, I still do a lot in my life, even in context and relationship to her, where I take the lead. But the way I take the lead is in a way where it's like, she's like, yeah, I don't want to deal with that. You can take care of that. And she trusts my ability to take care of those things. One of the things that she said to me is that, you're my riverbank for my flow. And I need that. I need the riverbank for my flow. So she's got this deep divine connection with the feminine flow. And she's like, hey, I need you to be my riverbank. Because sometimes what she needs those railings. And so as a sovereign submissive man, that's one of the things that I can give her. Yes, I'm submitting to her. But submission doesn't automatically mean that you say yes to everything or that you go along with everything. Submission is a choice. It's a conscious, aware, present choice. I am choosing this from a place of presence. Let that land with you. Welcome, pretty foot lover. Glad to have you here. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop them in the chat there. What I see happen for a lot of men is, they want submission. What they do is they hide it. They hide their desire, and it becomes this secret life that they have. They watch porn about submission, but they don't speak to their partner and say, this is something I want. Or, they basically are like, well, I'm going to create a throwaway account and follow these accounts online. But I'm not going to really speak up about what I want or share because I'm afraid that, someone's going to say something to me or is going to shame me. And I get it. I get it, gentlemen. I really do. Because the truth is, it's like I felt for a long time a lot of resistance around my own submission. It took me a long time to make peace with the fact that I had this desire, especially because we live in a society where traditional male narratives are, men must lead. You've got to have it all together. You've got to be the provider. You have to take control. And all the pressures that come with that. And so it was like, oh, well, I actually want submission. I don't always want to be the leader. Maybe, and it might even be like, I don't want to be the leader in the bedroom, but maybe like in other areas of our lives, we, like your dynamic can be whatever it is. Like, I was listening to a podcast the other day where the guy was talking about how like he's a submissive male, but he's a submissive man in the bedroom. He's not like in every other area of their lives, like they make choices and decisions together. But when it comes to the bedroom, that's when she takes the lead. Okay, great. If like that's your particular flavor, then awesome. You get to have that. You get to choose what your submission is, because here's the thing, as a sovereign man, your submission is a choice. You get to have that choice. Now, part of that choice, part of the thing is, of course, is that we're dealing with consensuality, right? So we're going to entrust. So, I can go to her and I can say, this is what I want. But it's up to her to also decide if that's what she wants. I think a lot of times the reason why submissive men hold back on saying something to their wives or girlfriends or whatever is because they're afraid that she's not going to want that, or that she's going to laugh at them or whatever else. But a lot of the time they might discover to their surprise that if anything, she's open to it. Of course, I mean, this comes right down to being willing to have the hard conversations. If there's something that you really genuinely want, speak for it. Ask for it. And yet I also get the experience of shame because, again, we have this societal imprint that says men have to be a certain way. I had a man contact me. I'd shared with him some resources. We'd been talking. I've been sharing some things that I can do to help him if he wants to work with me. But I shared another resource, and he wrote me recently. He's like, I've tried to look at the stuff that you sent me 3 times. And he's like, I find myself like not doing it because he's like, I feel like I have to be a real man. He's like, and even though that's like a really toxic narrative. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get it, brother. Because there is this narrative that says, well, you have to be a real man. Well, what does a real man mean? Guess what? You can be a real man any number of different ways. Holding on to a performance of what masculinity is the ultimate in simping. So when someone says that, don't be a simp man, well, guess what? That man is probably being a simp. Because what he's doing is he's performing masculinity. He probably doesn't even know what his own relationship around masculinity is, other than a vague sense of, I have to look a certain way, I have to act a certain way. That's not a sovereign choice. It's not a choice that is rooted in your own awareness of yourself, having done the deep work. And this is one of the reasons why I incorporate some men's work and somatic coaching and all the other things that I do into my work with submissive men. Because there's a space that we need where we can support each other and meet each other in brotherhood. Where it's like, guess what? We can all say, hey, I'm not alone. How empowering does it feel to know that you're not alone? I can tell you, it is a powerful and amazing experience, and it requires a lot of strength. To take that step out of the cage, out of the box that you've been presented to around what masculinity is or isn't, and to say, I'm going to live my life on my terms. I'm going to choose to step forward and claim what I really genuinely want. But brother, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. Welcome, Melody. Glad to have you here. Pretty Foot Lover says, some women won't want a submissive man, though. They want a more traditional man that leads, provides stability, security. That might just be a mismatch then between two people. Would you agree? Yes, absolutely. Look, here's the thing. A lot of people stay in relationships for longer than they ought to because they're like, well, I really love this person, and yet there's a fundamental mismatch. There are some women who want traditional men. I mean, I see plenty of it posted on here on Substack in the notes. Women who are like, like I want a man who leads or a man who's in his power is really attractive and appealing to me. And their version of power is that man is a dominant man. Okay. More power to them. I was even on a podcast episode once with a woman where we were talking about that. Like that was her angle. Like she teaches men how to be more powerful, dominant men. Okay, great. And yet here's the thing that I found is that there are many different flavors of people out there. So like if you're somebody who wants to submit, and go for it. The other thing I will say, though, in regards to this comment, because I think this is a really good thing, is that a submissive man can still provide stability and security. And you might say, well, like, what do you mean by that? Like, doesn't that seem contradictory? No, not at all. This kind of comes back to this whole concept of sovereignty. First of all, like I'm a sovereign man in my life in the way that I conduct myself, the way that I live, the way that I act, the way that I interact with other people. There is one person I submit to and one person alone, and that's my mistress. And some people may be in a polyamorous situation where they submit to multiple partners. Fair enough. Like however you work that out, great. More power to you. And I'm actually in a polyamorous situation, but I don't submit to the other person that's involved. We have a different relationship. But to her, I do submit. And she finds that incredibly secure and stabilizing to have this powerful, embodied, present man kneel to her and give himself over to her leadership is something that provides her a sense of security and stability. So I think it's important to pop that particular part of the narrative there, because the fact of the matter is a submissive man can be an incredibly powerful and present person who's choosing to kneel in his sovereignty to his mistress and still provide a deep sense of security and stability because he's empowering her from under. And that's one of the things that we really need to be open to exploring. So I have a program that's coming up on April, and it's called the Sovereign Code. And I'm going to drop a link in here, and then I'll keep talking. And in this program, one of the things that we're going to do is actually explore how to create the sovereign foundation that supports your submission. So what does that really mean? Well, essentially what it means is that what we are doing is we are creating a foundation around not just our desires, but also our values. And we are allowing the combination of those desires and values to inform and flavor our submission, but also our sovereignty. This is, again, a really important thing. A man who is submissive needs to have a code, a way of being. Part of that is going to be flavored by the submission, but part of it also needs to be flavored by his own sense of sovereignty. And this doesn't contradict being submissive. This supports and enhances the submission. The other situation that I find is, like you mentioned, Pretty Foot Lover, like on the one hand, we have like, okay, some women want more traditional relationships. Okay, great. More power to you. You're a mismatch and we go our separate ways. And that can be sad and hard, but that's life. I say this as somebody who's been divorced twice and gone through a few breakups. You'll get through it and you'll be okay. It does help if you have some other people there. And this is one of the reasons why, again, like I do the work that I do, because I want to support submissive men who might be feeling alone out there to realize you're not alone and you can have a genuine brotherhood where you are supported by men who are similar to you. Because that's something I don't see out there in the men's workspace. I see some really good, healthy spaces. I will say that. And I have a lot of respect for many of the men out there doing the work. And I want to be clear that men's work is not the same thing as the manosphere, okay? It's different, totally different direction. But the one thing I don't see is a space in the men's workspace for submissive men. And that's the space that's my mission. That's my purpose, is to create that space for submissive men. That's what I'm building. But here's the other thing I find that sometimes happen is that on the other side of it is a submissive man will be so desperate to get into a relationship that he will put himself into a situation where he'll submit to the wrong person. And it's not because she wants a traditional relationship. It's because she's going to try and be extractive with him. Because she's like, well, now I can walk all over him and take advantage of him and use him. I can use him financially. I can use him in all these other ways. And this is another reason why submissive men need to like have a sense of like a code. Yes, I want to submit. Great. And I have enough respect that I can kneel to her, but I can also say, I'm looking out for myself and I'm going to take care of myself. And this is something that we will gradually build together over time. Submission, this is the advice I'm going to give really to anyone out there. Like, if you want submission, don't rush into it. Take your time. It's not just a dynamic that you're going into, it's a relationship. And a genuine relationship deserves the time and depth that you give to it. Now, you can go out there and hire somebody to dominate you, and more power to you if that's something you want to explore. I've done it occasionally. I think it's a good way to actually explore some of your desires. But there's a very real difference between, getting together with someone for a scene and actually choosing to develop a relationship with somebody. And if that's what you want, if what you really want is, I want a relationship with a woman where I'm submitting to her, give her and yourself the time to develop that relationship. Now, again, make sure that you're on the same page in terms of your desires. Give yourself that time. So, in closing here, what I think is really important is that we really do accept that there is value in choosing and claiming our sovereignty. Being a submissive man doesn't mean that you're submissive in every aspect of your life. It doesn't mean that you give yourself over to everyone around you and submit and say yes to them. That's not submission. That's nice guy codependency. We don't need to be nice guy codependents. That's the last thing we need to be. And, I'll share with you too that for me, a long time, one of my struggles was really around like, I want to submit, and is this a form of nice guy codependency? Because that's the last thing I want. And I'd been, like I said earlier in the thing, I'd been a codependent nice guy. I'm not a codependent nice guy anymore. I've done the work. And there was a lot of work that needed to be done. I needed to do a lot of emotional labor. I needed to spend some time really detangling my relationship with the feminine and getting into a good place with it, both within myself and in relationship to women. And I also had to explore my relationship with other men. The truth is that I don't think there's anyone alive who doesn't have to spend some time exploring some of these themes in some form or another, regardless of what you identify as, how you identify, what your orientations are, anything like that. This work requires a certain level of presence and awareness that is going to call you in. And that's why it's so important for us to step into our sovereignty. So again, if you're curious, check out the link. I'm going to post it in the show notes as well. This is a 14-day cohort that we're going to do, and we're going to be exploring this concept of creating a sovereign code to guide and support you in your submission. I hope to see some of you there. And in the meantime, continue to walk through life tall with a straight spine. And when you kneel to her with pride and awareness and presence, and give her the fullness of your devotion and service. Thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.